New plastic.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Um, this Crimes and Claws has been a long time in the coming. Let me tell you. I think we've been trying to do this for, let me turn down that. I don't want to hear myself.
Oh,
That's
shit.
better. It's like, yeah. I know you and I both are like, no, we don't want to hear ourselves. It's all good. Um, but I think I've been trying to do this thing, gosh, for like a month and a half. We've been trying to get this together to do it. So
Yes,
finally,
ma'am.
we are going to do it. So Stace and I. So the special guest is Miss Stacy from Fifi's Bits
Woo!
and Bobs.
Hey,
So
hey.
yay! So we're gonna go ahead and she's gonna do her nail thing. She's gonna play with nails. This is a little different than Killer Nails Twisted Tales because that is one that we base everything off the story and we kind of build it all together. This is more of Stacy and I having a conversation about this crazy. Oh, and I lost my first page. How did I do that? Lovely. There it is. I'm all like, how did I do that? That's good job, Teresa. I looked
Are
over
you
at my
after naughty by any chance?
I I have like pages and pages of notes, y'all. So that's why I'm like, wait, don't lose them. So it may end up being like more Stacy doing the nails, but she and I are going to have more of a conversation about this. And I really would love it if y'all would engage in the chat. Let me know if you have some questions. Let me know if you've absolutely heard about this before. Some people have never heard about it. So,
How I do not know, but
I know, right? There are some
judgment
people
free zone, honest.
that just like they haven't heard about it. There's some sayings that we say like all
Mm-hmm.
the time that people say all the time that literally came from this story. So it's pretty deep and there's a lot going on. Before we start, I just want to talk about, sorry, I was drinking some water there. I just want to talk about, I realized that these are all true people, that that happened to real everyday people. So I just want to make sure everyone has a little grace when they think about this and the things that some of these people did, because, you know, that's the thing with cults. You just don't know what is going to suck some people in. And it's different with all of them. And this one did not start out as something that you would think would be like, oh, going to stay away from that. Not good, you know? Um, so when we talk about Jonestown in general, Jonestown was in Guyana, and it is one of the places that there was one of the largest mass murder/suicides in history, where over 900 people either took their own lives or were murdered. Um, of those 900 people, 300 of them were children. So we're going to talk about who the person that hey, welcome, Rebecca. I'm so appreciative you coming.
Hello.
Thank you. Um, so, Jonestown was not a group of people, it was one man. There was one man that was the driving force behind this. So, when you talk about Jonestown and the People's Temple, you can't talk about it without understanding who started it and how it started. You know, Jim Jones was born back in May of 1931. Can you imagine? It was like,
Good God.
I know, right? I think
Older than
about
my
that.
mother.
I was going to say that's older than my mom, too. My mom was born in
Ah,
49, right?
because we're
So
evil like that.
it's one of those where you start going through it and you're like, okay, who was this person and how did we get to the point where he was able to convince over 900 people to leave their life in California or wherever they came from, because right before they went to Guyana they were in California. So this person was able to convince these 900 people to give him everything, fly to Guyana, the middle of the jungle, people,
Mm-hmm.
on his saying, because of something atrocious and horrible that happens, they either, like I said, choose to take their own life, which some of them did. I'm not saying that all of the people who died there were murdered, but they absolutely have proof that there were people that had, you know, injection marks in their shoulders and things like that when you were supposed to be drinking whatever it was that was going to take you on to the nether regions, right? So I'm like, you know, it's just, it's so strange to me because here's the thing. I'm the kind of person, I pride myself to think that I'm the kind of person who thinks for themselves, right? You know, Stace, I feel like you're somebody who thinks for themselves.
Yeah, I can't be brainwashed.
Right. You know, I pride myself in feeling like I'm somebody who I feel like I'm, you know, semi-intelligent and, you know, all of that. And I feel like this is not something I could fall into. But then when you start hearing about some of these people that were part of the People's Temple and how it started, you just go, oh, they're not so different from me, you know? And it's kind of, it makes you think. It really does. So, like I said, he was born May 13th, 1931. His mother and father had a turbulent relationship. His father had severe PTSD, which at the time from World War I, and at the time they didn't talk about PTSD. It was, you know, that was not something they talked about. These men came home from this atrocious war and were supposed to be able to just be like, okay, going back to everyday life. So he had to deal with that, but then he also had to deal with the fact that his lungs were messed up because he got mustard gassed in World War I, right? So for the rest of his life, his lungs were jacked up. And needless to say, it definitely took a toll on his psyche. He was not the kindest or happiest of human beings. And there are some stories and some research that you can find that says that he was actually a member of the Ku Klux Klan. I cannot obviously say whether he was or not, but there is some research saying that he was definitely not the most open-minded individual. When Jim was young and in Indiana, the area he lived in was a mixed area, and he had some friends that were Black, and his father absolutely would not let them play together. It was like, that's not, you know, so I feel like the whole Ku Klux Klan thing probably was right. It was probably true. So Jim, from a young age, was considered very charismatic. He was able to talk to adults and carry on conversations that were much more advanced in age than you would think like a 10-year-old would be able to carry on. So he impressed adults, and he had one person that was a big influence on him, and it was one of the local pastors' wives. So, because as much as adults thought, wow, this kid is like, you know, much more older than he seems and more advanced, his own age group, though, thought he was some weird kid because he was somebody who was like, you know, talking to the adults like on their level and things like that. So he did not have a lot of friends his own age that were children. You know, people that he spoke with and spent time with were older. And so this woman had a huge influence on his life. They would talk about the scriptures together, like on the daily. He would go to services every single solitary day. I mean, the child was going. I know, right? I'm like thinking to myself, pardon? I'm like, at 10 years old, I try to think back of like, okay, it was a hot second ago, I will admit. So, but I try to think, you know, back about when I was that age, and we're gonna have Stace go big, and I'm gonna go small because the story, y'all, is so like crazy. I need to make sure to be able to look at my notes. It is just, There. Oh, I forgot you were on that camera. All right, we'll do this. There we go. All right. At least you're mostly bigger now.
Okay.
I have to be able to make sure to get back to my notes because honestly, y'all, there's so much to talk about, and I'm gonna try to keep it like 2 hours or less. That's my goal. Fingers
So
crossed.
ways to go.
But it is the whole conversation about cults in general that I find fascinating, right? So this was a 10-year-old kid who in Indiana started preaching the gospel because he was going to church every single day. And he was going to speak to, and hang out with this pastor's wife and talk about the scriptures every day.
That's all the
Every
chat.
day. Right? I'm just like, you have to be able to like try to interact with your friends and things like that. So it's very crazy. But because it was the kind of thing he would hold sermons for like the local kids. And if they found animals that were dead, they would hold like mock funerals and he would, give you a sermon at the funeral. It was very, he was very into religion. Like it was a part of him at a very, very young age. So he grew up, like I said, with all of the craziness that was going on. And I think that one of the things that we have to remember, so this is like 1940-ish, right? So there was not a lot of money. It was very, very poor. His family, they moved around a lot. And then finally it got to the point where he was not spending a lot of time at home. And he just was kind of doing his own thing. And literally that's how we went for a few years, going along. Like he would be at home, but it wasn't like that he had a family life. So he got married in his late teens, early 20s, to a student nurse. He was working as an orderly at a hospital in Indiana. And he met this student nurse and he was still doing his sermons. Like if you wanted to talk to him and have him like preach to you, he would do it right there, one-on-one, not a problem. So he was still just doing it as much as possible. And he was trying to, get his own congregation because the things that he was talking about, which makes it such a weird story to me, is the things that he was talking about in the 1950s were like integration, having, black families, rich families, poor families, white families, all being able to worship together at one church. So here's this person talking about integration in the 50s when here in the United States in the 1950s, let's be honest, civil rights was quite high up on the things that we had issues with here. So having somebody in Indiana, which is middle of the United States, Midwest, talking about these kind of things was very out of the ordinary. And he started attracting a lot of people, different kinds of people from different backgrounds, because it was the kind of thing. Imagine this, right? You're a single mom, you don't have money for groceries, and you don't have a roof over your head. Well, once he starts preaching and starts to get his own congregation, he officially starts the People's Temple. People's Temple and Jim Jones will get you a house to live in, and they will get you groceries, and they will get you a job. So here's this man who is helping, So if you're somebody down on your luck and you need some help, this is somebody who in your community was like, hey, I am here for you. So how do you go from that to being somebody who is able to convince this many people that it's okay to take their own lives or to kill their loved ones in the name of God? How do you get from that? You know what I mean? Because his intentions, I feel like in the beginning, with the things that they talk about and the way that he was able to attract people, like I said, from all different kinds of walks of life, if he was able to attract people who wanted to help their community, right? So maybe they're not down on their luck, but they wanted to be part of a solution and helping their community. So he was able to attract people like that, people, college educated people, doctors. That's the kind of people he was able to attract because of his message at the time. Think about that.
That's some power.
You know, he started out, I feel like, in a place that you can kind of say is in a place of good, right? I mean, the things he was talking about, right? So he starts out in this place where the things that he's talking about and what he's doing for the community is all a great thing, a good thing. How do you get from there to where he was at the end? What is that switch? You know,
One of the great many questions, I think.
Well, and I think when you think about cults in general, right? So I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing when I say this, but I don't feel like, you know, I don't know that people wake up in the morning and go, hey, I'm going to start a cult today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some people do. I could be completely wrong in saying that people don't do that. Maybe there's somebody out there who's like, hey, I'm totally going to do this, right? But for the people who, like, he started this, the People's Temple, to make his community better and to bring them together and to, you know, spread the word of God, right? And he went from that to start to the point where he saw the power he was starting to get. People are starting to call him Father. So he was no longer Jim Jones. He was Father to them. And they were all starting to live very close to each other. And if you were a temple child and you were in school, the only kids that you could talk to were kids of temple members. So it started out as something that was, they were trying to bring as much community in as they could possibly do. And then that power he started to see. And I feel like it was something that in him that he was like, oh yeah, I like the power. Because he started to, his community, he started to kind of put those walls up around them. Like I said, kids, you can only play with temple kids. People were giving like a lot of their paycheck, if not all of their paycheck, to the temple. So the People's Temple was getting all of their money. But on the other side, the People's Temple was also providing them with everything they thought they needed. A roof over their head, food, community, what they considered, you know, love and understanding and kindness. So they were happy to give their checks over, you know, because what they thought they were getting in return was worth it to them.
Yeah.
You know, and the part I think for me that's hard, and I always when I this one specifically, not all cults, but this specific cult, and I am so glad to hear that, Leslie, is, I said Leslie, I meant Lisa. Oh my God, my brain is broken. Y'all, if you watched my Born Pretty PR video earlier, there are times in it that I'm like, am I stroking out? Because I'm stumbling over my words so bad. And I'm like, do I take it out or do I leave it in? And I'm thinking, they know me, leave it in, you know?
Yeah.
You know, exactly. But it is, so for me, I think about, because I feel like I'm somebody who tries to keep themselves fairly up on, shall we say, you know.
You try to be a grown up, let's face it.
Well, I try to be a grown up, but I also try to keep making sure that I have an idea of what's going on. I'm not the kind of person that likes to hide their head in the sand and pretend like everything is great when it's not. You know, I'm not good at that. I just am not. It stresses me out so much to play those kind of games. So
I know. I saw it firsthand.
But I'm also the kind of person, I feel like, who wants to be involved in something that's going to make the community better, right? So the kind of thing that it's going to, like, I like to go to, you know, marches and protests, and I like to donate and my time and do charity kind of stuff. So I'm like, I'm like, would I be somebody who was like, oh my God, look at the great stuff he's doing, and want to go like be part of that And before I know it, I'm sucked in.
I'd like to think you have more common sense than to get sucked in, but
I would too. I really would. But it's like when you
you'd be
find
the
out
same.
about the fact that there were college educated people, like I said, that were part of this. There were people that were nurses. They had a couple of doctors. They had lawyer. I mean, not just like, hey, these are people down on their luck, so someone's able to come here and like take complete advantage of them. We're talking about like all different kinds of people in the community became part of the People's Temple. And so it was very strange. Now, the one thing I will say when you look at the People's Temple, they had their congregation. They were in primarily areas that would be considered like a um, I wouldn't even say a middle class area. I would say like a lower middle class to like upper lower class. It's hard, and I hate saying class, but it's like the areas that where he was buying houses and having his community was a community that was a community of colored people. So when I say that, I mean there were brown people, there were white people, there were all kinds of people. So it wasn't just a community that was a strictly white community or a strictly black community. It was truly a community that had all different walks of life in it, right? But when he started buying all these houses and started to move more and more black families into the community, they had some neighbors who were not real happy about that. So that kind of stuff, I feel like that's a good thing. Integration's a wonderful thing. We have to be able to respect and love each other and to value what makes us different and what makes us the same. You know what I mean? So I worry that, especially with this one, I'm like, because of the fact there were so many people that had what I feel like is more than just a basic education that we're sucked in by this man. Like, what is it in you that you're like, you're able to, you want to believe so badly that you overlook things you shouldn't? Because one of the things that started happening is once he started realizing he had power because these people were listening to him, they were calling him father, and he was having more and more people show up, he started doing healings. And I put this in quotations.
Yeah.
Well, and it's what he would do is crazy. Like, so some of the older members, like there was one time an older member, it was a woman, they drugged her up until she was unconscious, put a cast on her leg. She woke up and they said, "Oh, you fell, broke your leg, but don't worry, Father's going to heal you." And then he
Oh,
would have a
lovely.
sermon. They'd bring her up, they would cut the cast off, and he'd say, "Stand up and walk." And she, of course, she'd be able to walk. Her leg was broken. But so he started doing things like that, where he would start to tell people that, hey, people would say, "Oh, I've got cancer." Well, and he would, he would do a service where like it was just so incredibly emotional and things like that. And people would just break down and he's like, "Your cancer's cured." And he did that to more than one person. He had a few people who came to him with stage 4 cancer right before they were going to Guyana, and he professed to have healed them. These people went over to Guyana and they died from their cancer.
Oh dear.
Right? I'm like, but it's like when you start doing that kind of thing and people, when you want to believe so badly and someone shows you what you want to believe, it's
Yes,
heavy.
Nikki, he was.
You know what I mean? He was an absolute 100% a scammer. He turned into the biggest scammer. But where he started and where he ended up are such different places. And that's what I find so fascinating about the story. Because he professes, and the things that he did when he first started with the People's Temple and things like that seemed to come from a good place, a place of love. And then when he realized money brings power, he was buying up houses, and the more and more people that he was able to, hey, come here, donate your money, we'll take care of you. And they wanted someone to make it better for them. Life was not great for them, or whatever was missing in them. He was able to look at people and read them and be able to talk to that missing piece of you and suck you in.
Like a magician, I tell you.
Well, I mean, cult leaders, you think about that, right? There's something about cult leaders in general that I feel like they are the kind of people that can read people well. So if you have that kind of personality, right, where you want people to just follow you and all of that, but then having that, being able to read people and then go, okay, this is that thing that they are really like missing, like a father figure or whatever. And he would even, it got to the point where there were members of the People's Temple. You would come to the People's Temple and he would tell you, you and your husband are no longer married. Your wife is now mine, and you are going to go over here and you're going to be part of this family now, and you're no longer married. And not only are you no longer married, but if you have children, your children are no longer your children. They're all the people's children, and they're going to go over here and be raised by this other family. So he starts like splitting up families so that he has more control. Because if you don't have your family by you and they say you need to do this or your family is going to have something happen to them, you start having a lot of power over people, and it's really, really crazy how he was able to like walk these people along this line to the point where they were like, gave everything. Literally, some of them gave everything for him. So they got to the point where in Indiana, they were very, very large, right? And the more that Jim started getting more and more people into the temple, he felt like he needed to be doing something all the time, right? Like he didn't want to sleep. That was not something that Jim Jones was looking to do. So Jim Jones started doing drugs, any kind of amphetamines that would keep him awake for days on end so that he could preach, and which then inevitably made him very paranoid because he's not sleeping. You're not sleeping. You're when you don't sleep, everything gets affected. And paranoia, absolutely.
It's honestly, it's diabolical how he got that, but hey ho.
And so he's in Indiana, he's getting crazy paranoid, and he convinces his congregation. Hi, sweetie. Welcome, Sarah. Sorry, I'm just drinking water, y'all. When I talk this much and gab this much, I need the water.
Get parched.
I am parched. So he's starting to get more and more paranoid because he's taking all these amphetamines so that he can stay awake, so that he can make sure that he has got the control over everything, right? So in the People's Temple, when you looked at sort of the hierarchy in the temple, right? So if you looked at the congregation was heavily Black, but they did have, like I said, Hispanic, white. There was a mix of people that were there, but it was this congregation itself was truly a very heavily Black congregation. But the members of the temple who were like in the power in the temple, it was every single solitary one of them was a white person. There was not one person of color that was part of Jim's inner group that ran all of this. It was all white people, which I thought was so interesting. That, because I truly believe like that when you see these people that kind of like, they like feel like we must help people because we're kind of better than some other people. I feel like it had gotten to that point where when you start looking at this and reading about it, they were almost like, oh, we know better. We know best for what, you just need to do exactly what we say. Don't think for yourself. Don't believe what you think you see. You just need to believe us white people up here who you're giving all your money to. And so they got super paranoid. Jim went crazy with his paranoia and was convinced that nuclear war was going to happen. Now, mind you, this was when the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on. So it's not like that wasn't like on a lot of people's minds. My mom talks to me about like when she was in school, they used to have to do like, duck and cover under their desk because, oh my gosh, it could be like, a missile coming that way. And I'm thinking to myself, and your desk is going to save you how? But I digress.
It's a super special desk, clearly.
I know, right? I'm like, okay. So he convinces his congregation that they are no longer safe in Indiana. And where they will be safe is in California. I know, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. You're going to be safe in California? But part of it was the fact that he saw some of the things that were going on in California, and he was attracted to them, right? So in San Francisco at the time, this was, I don't know how many, because I know quite a few of y'all, most of you probably are not from the US who are watching us right now. But in Northern California, right around San Francisco, is a very, the community is very different, right? So you've got like ultra rich there, but then you've also got like there was the Haight-Ashbury in the 60s. So it was like the hippies were there in the 60s and stuff. So it was like one of these communities that's very different. San Francisco is very expensive to live in, but it is also a very liberal, open-minded area, right? And his message of inclusion and his message of integration and all of that fit what was going on in California at the time, right? So they fit in so well in California, it was kind of scary. They moved the congregation to California. They start buying houses. They get their church. They have the temple, and his congregation is just getting larger and larger, and people are starting to go and talk about it and bringing more and more members in every day. And with that, you couldn't keep me away, just Stephen. I appreciate y'all coming. Like I said, this is one I've been trying to get to for a while, and it's so much to talk about. Him moving to California.
She is on about coming over in February as well.
Sarah or me?
Sarah.
Oh, I know. When I come over, Sarah says she's going to come over as well, so I'm excited about that. Yay!
Excellent.
But like I said, he believed that they would be safer in California, so he went ahead and relocated all of his members to California. People left their jobs. They sold their houses. They moved away from all their extended family, and not because of some reason other like they wanted. It was because Jim Jones said we must move to California, so you're going to move. So you're going to quit your job. You're going to sell your house. And if you sell your house, the profits from your home are going to go to the People's Temple because it's one big community and the temple provides for everyone.
I fucking hate the word community. Just putting that out there right now.
I mean, think about it. I personally have moved across the country a couple of times. Now, none of them were for cults, thankfully. Not but like I moved across the country to go to college. I moved across the country to be closer to my mom because she got a job that was like literally across the country from me. I moved back here from Cali because I lived in California. I lived in California. I moved back from California to Illinois for a job. So I've moved across country before, but not because someone said, hey, you have to do this. It was because it was a conscious decision that I made on my own. But these people had given away all of their power and their just being able to think for themselves. They've given that all away. Jim
Yeah, they
Jones.
lost their autonomy completely.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of that song by what is it? The song "Cult of Personality." It's exactly that. That is exactly. Where do I live now? I live in Illinois now, so I live outside of Chicago. So I'm about an hour northwest of Chicago, is where I live now. So, as you can
She
tell,
gets all the best goodies.
Accent, right? My British accent here. I'm not a Brit. But I feel like everybody who's all my favorite people are all Brits.
Because they're fucking awesome.
I agree. I mean, I absolutely agree. Yeah. Okay. So let's think about it. So his church is getting bigger. His followers are absolutely devoted to him. They call him Father. They will do whatever he tells them to do. Remember, when you come there and you decide that you're going to be you're going to be a member, and you're going to have the temple take care of you. If you have a family, if you are married with children, husband, wife, split up, kids raised by someone else. So this is all happening, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. But also what's happening is he's helping people who have drug problems get off of drugs and get clean. He's feeding homeless in San Francisco. He's doing all of these things, and he's starting to get the community of San Francisco and mainly the politicians in San Francisco start noticing him because he has so much power, because his church has gotten so big. And so people in the community that have decided that they want to go into politics start coming to Jim Jones because of the fact that he has such a large community of color, right? So like I said, the majority, we absolutely, Sarah, 100% wolf in sheep's clothing. That was exactly what he was. But so as the temple got bigger and they started doing all these things, they were starting to get not only reporters were starting to pay attention. So news articles were being done about them. They were on in the news on TV a few times, stories about them. So people started hearing more and more about them. Well, as soon as that started happening, then politicians, of course, started paying attention because the church was so huge at that time that they were almost a voting bloc of their own. They could sway an election. So if Jim Jones told his congregation to vote for you, his congregation would vote for you. So politicians absolutely started paying a lot of attention to him. And I mean, think about it. It's not like we didn't have social media at the time. We didn't have the internet at the time. We couldn't just go, oh, hey, let me go Google the People's Temple and see, do they have a 5-star rating? So if you've gotten to the point where you've decided that you're going to be a member of the People's Temple, he's got his hooks in you so deeply that it is truly scary. And it's all about with him too is his image. So he kept going on with those fake healings, but with getting all of the news coverage. And did y'all hear my mom laughing?
Hey, Mama T!
Oh my God, she totally just laughed so loud. That is hilarious. Hold on, I need something to drink.
Busy work, this.
So, okay. Sorry, just want to make sure, because literally when I was talking to Stacy before we started, I have 25 pages of notes front and back typed.
Front and back.
So, so if I went through every single solitary, like, little bit of information that I have in my notes, we would be here for like 4 of these things, because there's just so much detail and weird things that went on. And so I'm literally just kind of skimming the surface of this to give you a taste of Jim Jones and the People's Temple and Jonestown and what happened there. One thing I want to say that I think is interesting. So it's called the People's Temple. There is no apostrophe in People's, because apostrophe, that infers ownership, right? When you have that apostrophe S, it infers that you own it. The People's Temple was owned by everyone. This was his line. It was owned by everyone, so they didn't need an apostrophe there. And so when you look up the People's Temple, it is spelled People's, no apostrophe. And that is not a misspelling. That is because of his line about how the temple belongs to everyone, so it doesn't belong to just, one person. So I'm just like, all right. So we're good. I know, isn't that crazy? I thought that was so wild when I read that, because I kept seeing it, and I'm all like, when I first started typing my stuff up, I'm throwing that apostrophe in there all the time, second nature. And I'm like, and then I was going through and I was reading, I can't remember which article I was reading, and they specifically talked about that's why the People's Temple, there's no apostrophe in there. Yes, but he kept all the money. Exactly. And he would have sex with anyone he wanted to, male and female, so that he could keep control. So, like, if you were someone, right, there were many members who they came there, right, and their wives were absolutely sucked in by all the wonderful things he was doing, and he was helping the children and donating and all this. So the husbands come along reluctantly, and then he turns those wives into, like, he is their god. He starts having sex with them. They start doing whatever he wants, and the husbands are just kind of sitting back going,
excuse you?
And there were some that tried to leave, but leaving the People's Temple was not something that you did lightly. Absolutely not something you did lightly. But so we're now in about 1970, okay? So I will tell you, 1970, I was alive, but barely alive. Okay? Barely alive. I was like, if you had left me alone longer than like 2 or 3 hours, I'd probably been dead. That barely alive. Okay.
All right, we believe you.
So I was alive. Oh God, that's scary to say.
I wasn't.
I know you weren't. I know you weren't. Okay, so let's think of, and since y'all, most of you, I'm assuming, are probably not from the U.S. Again, we've talked about that. Let's talk about San Francisco in 1970 again, right? So activism, civil rights, anti-war movement, social justice, all of those things were going on. So his People's Temple message absolutely fit in perfectly, like I said, and he started getting more and more attention from the media. The more media attention he got, the more attention he got from politicians, right? So George Moscone was running for mayor of San Francisco. And he was one of those politicians that he came to the temple, spoke to the congregation, talked about how wonderful Jim Jones was, and how he supported everything he did. And Jim Jones said, you know what, Mr. Moscone, we're going to vote for you. And he became the mayor of San Francisco because Jim Jones had such control over his congregation that he absolutely swayed that election. And politicians were seeing that. So people were absolutely lining up to talk to the People's Temple. So all kinds of politicians. Harvey Milk he's no longer alive. He was actually murdered. But Harvey Milk was a politician along with Moscone that praised Jim Jones, talked about him. And then, Jim Jones, his public image was somebody that, again, charity, integration, believes in civil rights, all of this kind of stuff. So what they believed in, he professed to believe in. And they had such sway with people that these people were, Harvey Milk, George Moscone, were very good people. I'm not trying to say that they were like shady, shifty politicians. They did good for their community. What they saw was, here's this man who's a preacher, who's got his temple, who's doing good for the community. So they wanted to be associated with that. Now they did real power. Again,
I'll be back in one moment.
No problem, sweetie. So while this was all going on, it was getting harder and harder for people to actually be able to see Jim Jones in person, because he was going down the rabbit hole with his amphetamines so much that he used to be up for days. Now he was up for like 6-7 days in a row. I personally feel like if you're up that much and you have not slept, you could not tell me that you are a sane individual anymore. You just can't. I know myself. I'm one of these people. I'll be honest. I'm one of these people. I don't think I've ever stayed up longer than 24 hours in my whole life. My body, I get to about 23 hours, my body starts to shut down. I start to like not being able to think clearly. I start stumbling over my words really badly. I just like start slurring when I'm talking. I'm not kidding. I get really bad, like about 23 hours. When I was younger, I was like, we're going to party all night. And yeah, no. Everybody else maybe, but not me. I was physically not able to do that. I was like, I had the drive and the will, right? The will was there. The body was weak.
For shame.
I know, right? It's bad. It's bad. But so at this point, he's getting more and more paranoid. And the more paranoid he gets, the crazier it becomes the things that he requires from the members of the temple, right? So you already know that we're giving them their paychecks if they have outside jobs. A lot of them do not work outside the temple. If they did, they were giving him their paychecks. Because the temple, remember, was providing everything for them. Roof over their head, their food, their community, their friends, their social group. It was the temple. So he started requiring people to prove their loyalty to him. And so what would happen is he would literally like do sermons for like 10 and 12 hours, and all the members had to be there for it. And he would just ramble on for like 10, 12 hours. And you had to be there. You could not fall asleep. If you fell asleep, God forbid you fell asleep, because literally they would take you up in front of the congregation and you would be beaten for falling asleep, because apparently your faith in Father, who was now professing to be God and having God speak through him, you should be able to stay awake during that. So if you did not stay awake, then you were not of good faith, and there was something wrong, and they felt that, well, we'll beat it out of you. So
because
crazy hours, right? And then you go, this man, I'm sorry, 10 and 12 hours of a crazy person talking about religion, using Bible verses and things like that, but also just talking about like just insane stuff. He started getting more and more paranoid. And you have to sit through that for 10 hours. I feel like that right there is mental abuse, where they break you down, because you're so exhausted. They can get you to do anything, believe anything, because you're so exhausted.
It's crazy sauce.
It really is. At this point, there were some people who were like, you know what? Slow your roll. I need to get the fuck out. There were people at this point who were starting to say, this is not the life that I thought it was going to be. This is not what Father promised us. This is us working all the time, giving him everything. He's living like a king, paranoid, having sex with whoever he wants. We're doing whatever he tells us. That's not the life he promised us, right? So people started to try to leave. But one of the only ways you were really ever going to be able to leave the temple was to kind of expose the temple for what they were, right? Because if not, you had no protection, right? So if you tried to leave this community, this was not a group that you could leave. At this point, Jim Jones, like I said, has gone down the rabbit hole of amphetamines to the point he's like insanely paranoid. He has bodyguards that are his special church members around him that are armed all the time. He has members of the church who will do anything he says. And when I say anything, you'll understand. There were members that wanted to leave. And if you did not feel like people knew exactly what was going on, where you were, what you were leaving for, you could be disappeared.
Just poof gone.
There was one of the members wanted to leave. He wanted his wife and his son to leave with him. His wife was the devout member. She absolutely believed in the Father, and will actually come. The story will come back, and we'll come back to her later. And her husband did not want to be part of the People's Temple anymore, and spoke up at a meeting. One of his sermons about this is not okay, blah blah blah, left, and he and a few other members were talking, and they started talking to a newspaper reporter. And when Jim Jones found out about this member tragically died when his house burned down.
Oh,
Mysterious.
coincidence?
Very, yes, I know. You know what they say, there's no coincidence in the world. But, so he had members that had gotten to the point where they were like, they believed what he said, everything that came out of his mouth. He was everything, and they would take a life for him. And that would not be the first life they took, and that would not be the last life they took. So it's getting to the point, like I said, wanting to do loyalty. So you have to stay awake for the 10 hours of this sermon, or it be, you need to do more volunteering. You need to be absolutely obedient to anything Father said. You need to give me absolutely every dime you have. If you have anything that can be sold, you must sell it and give that money to the temple. And then he started doing this thing. And this started actually before Guyana. He would talk about that it was time. It was time to do the loyalty. And he'd have everyone drink, not Kool-Aid, but Flavor Aid, like a cup of Flavor Aid. And he would tell them all right, you've been poisoned. And it was the kind of thing to mess with their mind. These people believed that he poisoned them, right? And that they were going to go on, and Father has wanted us to leave, and our loyalty is this. And then he would go, just kidding. Psych. It's just Flavor Aid, But think about the mental torture. Because you don't know one day that's not just going to be Flavor Aid. And that could be the day that he decides that cyanide needs to go in there. And he started doing that on a regular basis to his members. They would prove their loyalty to him. This now stopped having anything to do, in my opinion, religion and the God and any goodness of that left a long time ago. This was all about him just wanting the power and the money that came with that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Remember, he spoke to a lawyer, or sorry, not a lawyer. He spoke to a journalist. And lo and behold, a newspaper article comes out about the People's Temple of Jim Jones and what it's really like there. And that starts asking, people start asking questions that Jim Jones is not going to answer. Right? So he's starting to have more and more, television stations, newspaper reporters. Ooh, that's pretty. I love the color.
I have no idea if it's leaking. I think it might be, but it is what it is, and I don't plan on wearing it.
Uh-oh, I'm getting underwater muffles. I think it's
Stacey. You're a little. It's not me because I can hear them.
Oh, you can hear them? All right.
Yeah.
Is that any better, Sarah? I don't know. I hear a little bit in the background. I'm not 100% sure.
I do have my fan on, so that's not going to help, but I can't turn it off.
I have my fan as well. So there were, like I said, more and more of a spotlight was being shown on him, but not a spotlight in a good spotlight, more of a, wait a minute, what's going on here? So the more that happened, the more he wanted to go somewhere else. He needed to take his family and his children from the People's Temple, and they needed to go somewhere safe. So he started, okay, Lisa can hear it too. Is it any better, y'all? Oh, it sounds like it's back to normal now. Fabulous. I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, he started having people that were high up in his church. He started sending them around to different places, trying to figure out where they could start their youth somewhere in the world, because in the United States, it was all against them. It was a corrupt government. It was conspiracy theories left and right. The government was coming to get them. They were going to take their children, all this stuff. That's what he's telling his congregation, that the government's going to come take your kids. They're going to come take everything you have. They're going to split us up. They don't want us to keep preaching the gospel and our good work. So that's what he's telling his congregation. And one of his members goes over to Guyana, and they start to go, Guyana, interesting. Maybe that's a place we should look. And one of the reasons that they wanted to go to Guyana is, first of all, it was going to be in the middle of the jungle, so it was very hard for people to get there, but very hard for people to leave if we wanted to leave. There was no television. There was no phone service. The only communication that came in and out of Jonestown came in and out of Jim Jones's mouth. So any news, any communications that his members got once they got to Guyana came from Jim Jones. They were in an absolute lockdown vacuum where all they heard all day, every day, was Jim Jones. So being in the middle of the jungle, that was perfect for them. They were also, there was some really interesting, let me get to it here. There you are. All right. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. All right. So they didn't want to go stay anywhere in the U.S. They didn't want to go to Canada. So they went to South America in the middle of the jungle because of the fact that it was in the middle of the jungle. They were able to go there. There was no governmental oversights. You could go to Guyana and say, hey, I got a lot of money. I'm going to buy this land. And they'd be like, money? Sure, whatever you want. Go for it. Because as far as they were concerned, money spoke. So they bought up a large plot of land, 3,800 acres in Guyana, in the middle of the jungle. So 3,800 acres in the middle of the jungle, and Jonestown was in the deep middle center part of it. So think about that. You are cut off from everything. Absolutely everything. In the middle of the jungle. There's no going back at this point. So I need water. One moment, please. I know I'm like, oh, I need water bad.
Parched! Coughing dust!
Seriously. Well, and it's like, when you do this kind of thing and you are trying to tell the story, that was why I told Stacy, I'm like, I don't know with this story, I don't know that I'm going to do any nail stuff at all, right? Because I did pull out like, oh, I'll swatch a collection while I'm talking. Yeah, there's no way. There's just too much to try to make sure that I don't miss anything. So, but, Guyana is an English-speaking country and a socialist government. There was a very, very small population. Again, difficult to get there. It was in the remote jungle. They say limited government oversight. There was no government oversight. Let's just put it that way, okay? Until what happened, there was absolutely no government oversight of anything that was going on in Jonestown. As long as the money flowed to the government from Jim Jones, he could do whatever he wanted. Sound like anybody we know? I mean, let's think about it. There's so many, literally so many people that feel that is like, as long as they can do whatever they want, as long as they have enough money and they can buy enough people off. I mean, yep. I'm just gonna like, let's think about it. Elon Musk, he's a trillionaire. He did not get there because he was like, oh, I'm a great tree hugger type guy. Okay. Let's be honest about that. When you have enough money, the government pretty much is going to be like, yeah, whatever, you do whatever you want, or they're going to do whatever you want because you have the money. So, but again, like I said, isolation was the whole point of Jonestown. So once they bought that 3,800 acres, slowly they were starting to send the temple members over. And it would be like, you would go to the airport and there would be 20 people that were temple members that were flying to Guyana. None of them were allowed to sit together because, again, remember the government, this is a government conspiracy they're trying to get away from. The government is trying to take their children and trying to, take away father and all of this stuff. So it was like full on, James Bond, Mission Impossible type shit where they're like, okay, we're all going to be in different seats. We're not going to pretend like we don't know each other until they got there. And once they got there, first thing that happened, they took their passports. Very first thing. So you show up in Guyana and they go, give me your passport. We're just going to, for safekeeping, we're going to hold it for you. It's just like, hello? So very slowly, they start bringing more and more members over. And it gets to the point eventually that there are almost 1,000 members in Guyana. And they say that this is a remote, cut off, isolated area. I don't know. Has anyone here in the chat seen the pictures of what Jonestown looked like? I don't know. I have. So you've seen what it looked like in Jonestown. Anybody in the chat, have any of you all seen like the pictures of what Jonestown looked like? These people were like building huts in the middle of the jungle. They were building, like they had their one main, I don't guess you'd call it like a community area that they built, but it was very, very primitive. Very primitive.
Like an old school village, little tiny houses surrounding the big meeting hall.
Right, because there was nothing there. When they first got there, it was 3,800 acres of jungle.
Yep.
So the people that first got there, I mean, the stuff that they were doing was trying to build housing and things like that. The housing they were building, they were like barely structures to keep things over your head. And they had like, you again were separated, your families were separated, and the men would have like 6-8 people sleeping in a room in different like bunk beds.
Oh, fuck that.
Right in the middle of the jungle. You think it's hot now, Stacy?
I know.
Right? Think about that. I'm like, no, I need my air conditioning. I'm bougie as fuck on that kind of shit, y'all. I'll be honest. I have a separate air conditioner unit in the nail room. I have a separate one in my bedroom. I have a separate one in the living room. So I make sure.
No, there's no need to show off. Poor Lisa can't get one for love nor money over here at the moment.
Oh my God. Well, and it's funny because it's like they are the kind of thing I feel like you have to get them on off season. Because as soon as it gets hot, everybody wants one.
Yeah.
So like I would always buy mine on like Prime Day, the day after Thanksgiving here in the US, because it's like it's almost winter time. People are not needing AC units. So I was able to get a good deal. You know what I mean? I it's not so much bragging as understanding that I can't do the heat. I turn into the biggest, whiniest baby. I'm like, I'm worse than Stacy.
That's saying something.
I'm not. I'm like, it's hot. Oh my God, I'm melting. My line when it's super hot, and I think I've said this to Stacy. I don't know how many times. I'm melting. I'm just melting. I could not live in the jungle. So yay me. I guess I'm not going to Jonestown. You know, I'm just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So eventually, yeah, I'm telling you, I swear. But when I was looking at this and like, you know, looking at and reading and watching, like there's some incredible documentaries and things like that. There's one documentary that Jim Jones's son is one of the only people that actually survives this. Actually, he has 2 sons because he adopts a black child and says then they have a rainbow family, which everybody loves. But there is a documentary that his son is in that was just, it's so powerful when you listen to it and you watch it, because reading about stuff, right? Obviously, you have that image in your head of what you think these things look like. But when you actually see the grainy footage that people were taking then, and you're seeing these people and the people that you're seeing in these videos and the children that are in these videos, and they're making videos saying how wonderful it is in Jonestown. And they just wish everyone could come here because it was just so wonderful and so amazing. And you're seeing these videos, right? And you know those people are dead. They're all dead. And it is just a crazy juxtaposition to watch shows like that and see that, knowing the outcome of what happened. Because the longer they were there, the more isolated they were, the more he became even crazier, if you can imagine. So again, he was doing the loyalty tests daily. Come to the pavilion, drink your flavor aid, be willing to die because today might be the day. I'm going to now preach for 10, 12 hours. And then you need to go back, sleep for an hour, and then go work in the middle of the jungle for 12 hours, clearing the jungle so that we can make more homes to bring more people over here. I mean, think about that. Day in, day out. Your mind would just be absolutely either, I feel like if you were the kind of person who wanted out of there, it would be abject terror all the time. All the time.
Oh, definitely.
Wanted to leave, right? So if you were the ones that wanted to leave, and there were people that absolutely wanted to leave, they did not want to stay. Once they got there, they saw what was going on. They saw how Jim Jones was evolving and what he was evolving into. They wanted out. But they didn't have any passports anymore. They didn't have phones. They had no outside way of getting a hold of anybody. If you tried to write a letter and send it to your family, good luck your family getting those letters. So anything that you put in those letters, Father would find out about, because the only way to get the letters out is to give them to Father and his, trusted people, and they'll take and mail them for you. And they would open them and read them. So you cannot even tell your family members at home that you want to leave, right? Because they're going to find that out. And if they find that out, it's not going to be good for you. They found a few people trying to leave. One, I'm 100% convinced they killed him, but died from, mysterious circumstances. And then it got to the point where people were the relatives of the family members that were over in Jonestown, who were back in the States, who were in Canada. Because mind you, these were not just people from the US that were there. There were people from, because he started, his word and his reach started getting far and wide. So there were some people there that were not strictly from the United States. And family members were starting to panic because they could not get a hold of any of their loved ones in Jonestown. They would try to go to Guyana to see them. Imagine trying to fly there and see them, to be told, no, Father said you can't, you don't have permission to go. The government would tell them they did not have permission to go to Jonestown because they were not invited by Jim Jones. So you didn't have any recourse. You're in Guyana, remember, first of all. This is the mid-70s. You don't have a lot of leverage in a foreign country like that. So people here in the US, they start writing to, isn't it? I'm watching it right now. I'm like, ooh, that purple is so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. So it started to get to the point where family members were starting to get very concerned and started talking to their representatives. So Congress people here in the United States, they were writing letters to them saying, hey, something's not right. I'm very worried about it. My family went there and I haven't heard a word from them. And so they were trying to find someone to just listen to them, to just listen to what they were saying, that something's going on. Because remember, for the most part, here in the US, there were a few stories about what was going on, but he had let's think about it, had a pretty good reputation, and his members loved him. They were all saying, oh no, everything's great. Well, if they're saying everything's great, who do you believe, right? The people who were there or the concerned family members. Now, we know that obviously everything wasn't great, but how, as a public servant, as a congressperson, how do you help? What can you do to help? Because it finally got to that point where there was someone who started listening, and people were it's purple. It's just one of those colors that is just kind of like, yes, a lot. It's my favorite. It was funny. I was at work yesterday and I had a purple summer dress on with like one of those purple kind of very, very thin knitted sweater, like underneath kind of thing, but it's like basically completely see-through. It's just, like a crocheted sweater type situations. But I had that underneath it, and I had the purple shirt on, or it's the purple bat sweater with the purple dress on. And then my boss came in with a purple shirt, and we didn't even notice. Halfway through the day, like this one guy, Rowdy's like, "Did y'all plan this?" And I was like, I was like, "Oh no!" But as far as I'm concerned, I think Fridays should be purple from now on. But yes, so like I said, somebody started listening. And who started listening was Congressman Leo Ryan. So here in the United States, for you Brits, I'll do the highest level of politics that we're going to talk about this that we can. We have different districts in each state, and you have a congressperson that represents your district in the government. So that's what a congressperson is here. So the people that Congressman Leo Ryan, his state, his district he represented was the district that the People's Temple back in San Francisco was in. So that's why the people were going to Leo Ryan saying, "Congressman, you need to help us. We can't get a hold of our family members. We're getting very scared. It's something has to be done." And so he decides to start a congressional investigation of the People's Temple. And they're specifically Jonestown, and find out, are there people being held against their will? So what he is like, so his specific congressional investigation was to find out, were there people being held in Jonestown against their will who wanted to leave? So that's specifically what he was going to investigate. So Congressman Leo Ryan and a bunch of family members get on a plane from San Francisco, and they fly all the way to Guyana. And we call ours, Sarah's so cute. We call ours MIAs. It stands for MLAs, money loving assholes. So Congressman Leo Ryan and he has a congressional aide. One of his aides goes with him. They bring along some reporters from CBS, a camera crew. They bring, like I said, the family members, and they all get on a plane and they fly to Guyana. And on the plane, on their way over, they do not have permission from Jim Jones to come to Jonestown. So they are going to South America without any permission to go there. So he has to tell the family members, listen, we're going there. We're going to try to get your family members, but the local government is not going to help us. They're telling us we don't have permission because this is private land that the People's Temple is on, and the People's Temple don't want them there. So it's already a heightened situation. They tell Jim Jones, obviously, hey, we're on our way over. We want to meet with you. Congressman Ryan wants to talk with you. And we're going to fly over, which, remember, Jim Jones is already gone down the amphetamine rabbit hole. He is taking so many drugs, it's not even funny. He takes drugs to sleep. He takes drugs to wake up. He is literally drugged all day long. And he's paranoid out the yin-yang already. And then he finds out government conspiracy, the government's against them, remember? And then he finds out a representative from the government wants to come talk to him. So that sends him even farther over the edge. And it starts getting more and more crazy. And they start doing what they call white nights. So instead of you going to the pavilion during the day so he could preach you, he would literally keep you up all night long standing there. You had to stand while he was preaching and doing his sermon, to the point where he was starting to lose his voice sometime. And he would just go on and on for hours about how they were the chosen ones. The government was bad. Everyone in the government was corrupt, and they were going to come take their children, come take their families, all of that. And then he'd get out the Kool-Aid or the flavor aid. Now, we've all heard the term, don't drink the Kool-Aid. That saying actually started after Jonestown, but it wasn't actually Kool-Aid. It was flavor aid that they drank. But that's where that saying, don't drink the Kool-Aid, comes from. It's basically, when someone tells you that, they're telling you, hey, don't be just like a mindless follower. Think about what's going on. Don't just, follow along and drink the Kool-Aid.
Apparently, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh my.
Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Brainwashed and drank the Kool-Aid.
Well, that's because you're someone who's never been able to think for yourself, Stacey. Come on now.
I know. It's so sad. So sad.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So they land in Guyana, and there are negotiations going back and forth. And they finally say, okay, they're going to let Congressman Ryan, they're going to let his congressional aide, and they're going to let some news reporters in, the camera crews. They're going to let them in to Jonestown so that they can see for themselves that everything's good, right? That these people are all happy. They want to be there. And so Jim Jones decides to put on a show. So he has the children and members of Jonestown do a huge feast. Mind you, these people are like surviving on barely any food. Jim Jones is eating like a king. The people who are in charge are eating just fine. But the people, the actual his congregation, they're getting like bare minimum food. But they put on this huge banquet type thing and a show, and the kids get up there and sing and everything like that. And it just looks like everything's beautiful, right? It's this utopia. They've left all of that other stuff behind, and now this is this beautiful utopia. That's what they're trying to convince Leo Ryan is going on. While that's going on, there are some members there who are like, listen, this is our chance. This is our only chance to get, out of here, right? And one of them tries to slip a note to one of the members of the camera crew. So one of the reporters, he tries to slip a note to them. And everyone has been brainwashed and trained to, you turn anybody in, doesn't matter who you are. If you see your family member doing something that father says is not what you should be doing, your job as a temple member is to turn in that person. Because they're not godly. They're the opposite of godly, right? So this man tries to slip a note to the reporter, and it falls on the ground. And he picks it up really quick. He's like, hey, I think you dropped something, and hands it to this reporter, right? And a little kid sees him and says, literally yells out that he has slipped him a note. And the tension goes up big time. And this note says, hey, I don't want to be here. I want to leave. I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. This is not what they profess it to be, right? So this is the part that I feel like sealed the fate of what would happen. Because in the night, Leo Ryan gets up there at the end of the night and gives a speech to the congregation. And he's like, everything I've seen looks amazing. Everyone's happy. Everyone's loves being here. They love what's going on. And mind you, the congregation is going insane at this point, clapping and saying, yes, because they want to be there. The majority of these people want to be there. So he gets up, gives his speech, and then they go to sleep that night, right? And then he has a meeting with Jim Jones. Jim Jones says, you know what, fine. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone says that after everything that I know that's been going on, and I'm one of those people that wants to leave, I get even
It's
more scared. You know, would you get even more scared?
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
they're like, yeah, fine, no problem. You can leave. It's all good. No problem. That would probably be when I would be my most scared. And I think there are some interviews where they taught survivors who said that the decision to leave and they were trying to leave the compound, that's when they were the most terrified because they were absolutely convinced they were going to be gunned down right then and there. They thought for sure they were going to be killed right then and there. Now, that's not what happens. So the next morning, everybody gets up. People start, the ones that want to leave, start to get their stuff together to leave. And then the newspaper reporter goes and he starts talking to Jim Jones and he said, I got this letter slipped to me. And I feel like that right there, when he went to Jim Jones and said, hey, here's a letter from one of your congregation who says this is what's going on and they want to leave, they don't want to be here anymore. And he was confronted with that letter. I feel like that was right then when he was like, okay, all right, I know what's going on now. And he made that decision like right then and there, I feel like, in my opinion. We all know what opinions are, you know, we all have, you know, at least one. So
yeah.
People start getting their things together, and the way that they're going to leave Jonestown and get back to the airport where they have a plane waiting for them is a tractor is going to be pulling this big, like almost like a trailer behind it, right? So the people who are leaving are going to get in the trailer and the tractor is going to take them to the plane. So right as they're getting ready to leave, right? So people are getting their stuff, they're getting ready to leave. They're told, go ahead. You can absolutely, sorry, something freaked me out there for a second. What the hell? It was my cat. At the table, I literally was like, what the? My heart is beating like a mile a minute now from that. I know, right? So it is just that flustered me. Anyways, okay. People are getting their stuff together. They're getting ready to leave because that little piece of paper, that one note, was the tipping point. Jim Jones was absolutely confronted with people wanting to leave. So he told them they can leave. As they were getting ready to leave, one of the temple members who was Jim Jones's right-hand person, right, said, you know what? I've changed my mind. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to leave. Now, I'm thinking, you go from being Jim Jones's literally right-hand person. It was Jim Jones that named you. Now you've decided you don't want to be in Jonestown anymore. You want to leave. Now the members that wanted to leave went to Congressman Ryan and said, listen, this isn't right. Something funny's going on here. And he's like, don't worry. You have the protection of the congressional, seal type situation. Because member of Congress is with you, so you're fine. You're going to be protected. Nothing can happen. This man was so naive, in my opinion. He did not understand the danger that they were all in. He just didn't.
I don't think it was naive. I think it was hubris. Possibly.
It was the whole thing of thinking, hi, I'm a congressperson. So being that I'm a congressperson, I'm very well known. I'm a member of the government. That he thinks that that's going to provide him with some sort of protection. Why? Again, I think you're probably right. Hubris is probably a good way to say it. So they get out in the trailer, and the congressman is back, and he's talking to to Jim Jones. And right before he gets ready to leave, Don Sly, which was one of the members of the temple, pulls out a knife and literally tries to lunge at the congressman with a knife and says, I'm going to, he's like, basically what he says is, I'm going to end this now, MFer, and he tries to kill the congressman, right? I do think the congressman then was like, wow, okay, maybe something isn't quite what I think it is. Now, he's not injured at that point. He is not hurt. There is a famous picture of him leaving Jonestown, and he has blood on him. It's not actually his blood. It's the blood of Don Sly, because other members jumped on him and stopped him, pulled the knife away, that kind of thing. And Don Sly got injured at that point, and that's where the blood came from. But I think at that point, Congressman Ryan probably realized that he really underestimated what was going on and what he had gotten himself into the middle of. So it gets to the point, they get back to the airstrip, and now mind you, this all happens in 1978, right? So he gets back to the airstrip, and there's 2 planes waiting at the airstrip because so many people have decided to leave now, they can't all leave on one plane. So they need 2 planes. And some of the people that left, literally, it was families being split up. There's a very, very famous clip of this woman screaming about, "Give back my kids! You can't take my kids! You can't take my kids!" Because her husband wants to leave. He wants to take the kids with him. Well, she flips out, and he finally decides to stay with her and with the kids. So he decides not to leave after all because he can't get her to leave. And of course, they find them all dead later. But so as they're trying to get on the plane, another tractor pulls up, and in the back of this tractor are gunmen open fire on the congressman, the reporters, the people who are trying to leave. It's like literally a hail of bullets. I feel like we're getting a weird noise again. Do we have like that weird noise in the background?
Hold on, I'll try to turn my fan off, see if that helps.
I don't know. It could be me.
It could be a bit of everything.
Who knows, right? So they open fire, and Congressman Leo Ryan, Don Harris, the reporter, Bob Brown, who's the cameraman, photographer Greg Robinson, and one temple defector, Patricia Parks, are all killed right then and there. So the congressman is dead. There are several other people are like seriously injured. His congressional aide has been shot and seriously injured and is carried through the jungle for days with bullets in her, and survived, which is a miracle. It ends up actually running for Congress. It's Leo Ryan's seat years later, which is kind of crazy. But so they are absolutely, and now Jim Jones's right-hand man, I told you that he decided at the last second he wanted to leave. He was on one of the planes when the gunfire started happening, and he had a gun that he stuck on the plane. And the reason that Patricia Parks ends up getting killed is because he's on the plane and he starts shooting the survivors that are trying to leave on that plane. So he got on the plane with the survivors, professing that he wanted to leave with the intention of assassinating them and killing them all. He only ended up with Patricia, but still, it's like, oh my Lord. Mind you, while this is all happening, Jim Jones has 2 of his, what he considers most loyal people, take huge, gigantor suitcases full of money and leave Jonestown. because they're going to go start somewhere else, right? So they need to take all the money and leave so that they can, they can go somewhere else, which I think is so weird because he sends them off with like all of this money, right? And then out of the other side of his mouth, he starts talking about, he goes on the overhead speakers and says, everyone needs to come to the pavilion. And his final words to his congregation are all recorded. And some of the documentaries, you can absolutely hear everything he says to his congregation. He starts talking about them, about the fact that it is time that everything is so corrupt that they can't go on anymore, that it's time to be free of this your mortal coil, whatever they want to call it, and starts talking about that it is time to take their drink, their medicine. And don't worry, it's not going to be bad. You're just going to lay down. We're all going to go on together to a better place. It's going to be wonderful. And in these recordings, there's a couple people that literally stand up and go, isn't it better to try to survive and do better for like you and your children instead of doing this? And it's like, he goes, but if this world is such an ugly place, he goes, I don't want the children to live in such an ugly place. We need, so everything anyone can say, he has a counter argument for it, why they need to all commit mass suicide, which is kind of what it comes down to. What happens is they start handing out medicine. The children are the first ones, and you can hear kids crying and screaming, and he's telling people, as these people are watching, people that they love, their family members, they're foaming at the mouth, they're writhing in pain on the ground. He's like, oh no, it doesn't hurt. Don't believe what you're seeing. Believe me, it doesn't hurt. You just lay down and go to sleep. And people are like, F you. So people then and it starts to happen with some people. Those people are forcibly injected with cyanide and killed. There are children who are forcibly made to drink this flavor aid. And people just lay down and die. Over 900 people end up being either self-poisoned or murdered on that day in Guyana. So Jim Jones ends up, when we find him, he has not drank the flavor aid like everyone else and withered in pain, dying from cyanide poisoning, because that's what it was. This flavor aid was absolutely filled with cyanide. And Jim Jones, they found him, he was dead, but he had a bullet to his head. Now, here's the thing. Some people that, because there were a few people that actually survived that day being at Jonestown, said that he had someone shoot him because he couldn't kill himself, and then some people said that he killed himself. Either way, I feel like he took the easy way out when these 900 people suffered.
Oh yeah, definitely the coward's way.
So, because he didn't call it, he tried to say it was revolutionary suicide. That they were that they were leaving because it was this was their stand. They couldn't go any farther. This is their stand that they're making, and this was going to show the world what the People's Temple really was. So on that day, 918 people died. Like I said, there were over 300 children that were killed, and literally a few of people survived. So, because there were people that as soon as the shooting started, as soon as that Jim Jones started talking about taking medicine and everything, that. There were people that snuck off into the jungle. But think about it. You're in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of 3,800 acres of jungle. You had to be terrified just to think, like, how are you going to survive that? You run off to get away from what's happening. But you don't even know if you're going to survive that. You're in the jungle in South America. Let's think about it. You are not top of the food chain. Let's put it that way, okay?
You're not even in the middle of the food chain in the pissing jungle.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So not only are you in the middle of the jungle trying to survive and get away from what the horror that's happening at Jonestown, there's a story because there's a group of teenage-ish children that run into the jungle because their father tells them to. And they talk about that they're walking at night and all of a sudden they can hear some kind of an animal following them. They can hear, you know what I mean? And then thankfully it just goes on its way. They have no idea what it ever was, but who knows? I mean, South America, shit, they have like freaking crocodiles in fucking South America.
They have spiders bigger than your head.
Right? I'm like, holy crap. So
that's just a big old nope for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When authorities finally arrived in Jonestown, what they found was pretty much like the worst thing probably anyone could ever imagine seeing. I can't imagine being one of those people and finding that because, again, remember, it is hot. It is humid. It is in the middle of the jungle. It had to be bad.
Oh, yeah.
So they found entire families laying next to each other on the ground, dead. And then that they were in the middle of the jungle and like the tropical heat and everything like that. It was very hard for people back in the United States to get some of their family members home. So trying to, I mean, think about it. You've got a family member, just find out what happened to your family member, and now you have to figure out how to get your family member home from Guyana so that you can rest somewhere here, wherever here is, right? I just can't even imagine. This was the first time something like this was broadcast the way it was, because the news was all of this. Helicopters with news cameras in it were there. Pictures of Jonestown and the horrors were on the news like every night. Because nothing like this had ever happened before. That, at least that we knew of. Nothing. No time have I where they're saying, you know, somebody's convinced I'm sure maybe there are some other times that I don't know about historically. Absolutely. But in modern day era, before Jonestown, I don't think people thought about cults or even kind of really understood about cults.
No, because even the FLDS came after that, I think, publicly.
Absolutely. They absolutely did. And that's another one. Woo, that's another one. In doing this and researching this, you know, it is the kind of thing that, first of all, I didn't realize how many cults are like, first of all, actively like going on right now. YouTube, the internet, things like that has.
Oh my! There are a lot of cults.
The reach of some of these people worldwide now.
Oh, so, yeah.
I had no idea about some of that when I was researching this. And again, I always had the impression, because it's like everything I had heard and known about cults was, you know, you'd find like that one family member who was always like, oh, they had stuff, you know, they were troubled as a teenager. And the one family member would get sucked into a cult, right? And you'd see like stories about that. And so in researching this and seeing the kind of people that, like, just the vast variety of people that bought into this, For me, I feel like that was the biggest eye opener, because I went into this thinking more of these were all extremely naive, uneducated, low income, desperate people, right? And some of them were. I'm not going to say that they weren't. There were people like that were in his congregation. But then there were people that were highly educated people. Like I said, nurses, some doctors, some lawyers that were part of it. And so watching this and researching it and finding out about it, I feel like for me, it kind of, I don't want to say it was a myth, but it was that stereotype that the only people that get sucked into cults are people that are really naive, they can't think for themselves, that kind of thing. And in this, I did find that there were people that I was surprised that were involved. You would think that, because one of the reasons that I feel like it is very easy for people to get led astray and choose things that are against their own benefit is the less educated you are, the less that you choose to educate yourself on your own, and wanting to know what's going on in the world. The less that you want to do that, the easier it is for you to believe the lies. So I always had that impression that people in cults were always like more uneducated. Not even close. That is something that that has definitely opened my eyes. But they are definitely very sheltered sometimes.
Yes.
Go from a household of someone telling them what they need to believe, what they need to do, what they need to think, and are looking for I love that one. I love them all. They came out really good.
I actually hate this one. I love this one.
Oh, that's really pretty. I love that too. So, but looking at this stuff, I think about it now, right? And whatever you may think, whether you have any of your own opinions about politics and the state of the world today, I am of the opinion here in the United States that we have a cult of personality running our country right now. And people that I felt were highly educated people and moral people literally
turned out to be morons. I'll put it out there for you.
They did, and turned out to be very selfish. And the fact
and also thought I could be brainwashed. I'm a tad bit insulted by that.
Oh, I mean, say, anybody who thinks you can be brainwashed probably is someone who could be brainwashed themselves. Let's just
I'm pissed.
Because I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, that is not.
I can't even be fucking hypnotized, let alone brainwashed.
You're like, damn it, I want to be hypnotized. I'd like to try that. But
I did try it for my needle phobia. Yeah, it didn't work.
Oh God, and see, needles don't bother me, but I can understand it. I know that some people really don't like needles a lot, so I get that. But I think that the biggest thing with this is I feel like we do not learn from our mistakes. If you don't learn from your mistakes and from history, you are destined to make those mistakes again, in my opinion.
And again, and again, and again.
Very much so. And when people choose to follow a charismatic person, a charismatic leader, and that person says, don't believe what you see, believe what I tell you, and ask you to do things that are not only against what would be good for you as a person, but in some instances, literally, you're asked to do things that make your life harder. Like here in the United States, there are people who voted to make their lives harder because they were convinced that the current person in office was going to do all the things that he said he was going to do. And even though after seeing that he didn't do any of the things he said he was going to do before, they still chose to believe him. And those are the people that just
I struggle with that because all politicians lie. Why does anyone believe anything they say? Because they all lie. There's a long and short of it.
I think that it is to get to the point of feeling like, so let's think about it, right? So you choose to run for office because you feel like you have what it takes to either make this situation better, but it is that what's the word I want to say? It's the audacity to think that you are able to know what is good for a group of people, right? I feel like you have to be very self-centered in some ways to be politicians, because
Oh God, yeah.
to feel that you can make that kind of a difference, first of all, right? Now, I'm not trying to say that all politicians are all corrupt. I don't feel that. But I do feel like that you have to make a conscious effort to hold on to your morality and humanity when you go into politics. Because if not, I think it will be gone very quickly, because there are people there who are absolutely looking to screw over whoever they can so that they can have the money and power.
Parasites, they are.
They're very much so. I personally, I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of the mayor of New York, who is a democratic socialist. So his name is Mondani. And the thing that gets me about him is he made a lot of promises in his campaign. He hasn't been in office a year yet, and he's actually kept those promises. And all of these politicians who make the same promises but say it's so hard and we can't do it, nothing's fast. It takes a long time, and it's like a snail's pace type thing. Here's someone who is the mayor of New York City, which is arguably one of the largest cities in the world, and said, these are the things I'm going to do, and has done most of them already. So all of these people were like, oh, it takes so long, it's so this, it's so that. I'm like, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's because you're trying to milk the power and the money. And it's just, I feel like that is cults and politics in some way are very, very, they're opposite side of a coin type thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You can easily go the wrong way.
Oh, definitely.
I think that anytime you're told not to question stuff,
always question.
That's when you have to be worried. You have to, and that's true. I absolutely believe you always have to ask the questions. Never take anything at face value, because when you do that, you are giving away your free will. When you just take something at face value as this is, I'm going to believe this person because they say this, and I'm not even going to question or anything. You've given away your free will now, in my opinion. So I think
I full-heartedly agree.
I think, excuse me, now I've got hiccups all of a sudden. What the F? Great. So we are coming up on 2 hours, and I appreciate everyone being here. Like I said, this was absolutely a very high level discussion about Jonestown. I could not get into all of the details and all the names and all the dates, or we would be here for absolute hours.
Forever.
But if you do want to learn about Jonestown, I will tell you, there used to be a really good documentary on Netflix, but Netflix has taken it off. You know how after a while they'll take off stuff and then they bring it back? There was a really good one about Jonestown on Netflix that's no longer there. But if I'm not mistaken, Paramount Plus, I think that's who is doing it, I think it's Paramount. No, it's not. I'll have to look it up, and I'll put a community post. Um, they're getting ready to do a new like 4-part show about Jonestown, and it's going to be like
Ooh.
not like a theatrical interpretation. It's going to be like a 4-part like miniseries dig into it type thing. So that's going to be coming out soon. But there are a lot of really good documentaries on YouTube. So if you Google Jonestown, the People's Temple, this one documentary is on many different sites. They call it many different names. But if it's an hour and 44 minutes, that's the one.
That's the one.
Well, it gets very funny because I'm like, this same documentary is on so many different people's channels, and they all call it something different, but it's all an hour and 44 minutes long. It's all the exact same one. So, but if you want to learn more about it, I would say YouTube is a great source. There's so many really good documentaries out there. And like I said, they have a couple with family members. They have some documentaries with survivors from Jonestown where they go into much more detail about what they went through, how they were feeling, all of that. So I encourage you to please take a little time, learn about it. Keep your mind open. Make sure you ask questions, and don't ever let anyone tell you that your voice, your opinion doesn't matter, because it does.
Oh, hell yeah, it does. Keep shouting.
100%.
I have one more nail that just needs chrome and a top coat, and then I'm done.
Ooh, awesome. What I was going to say is what makes each one of us special is what makes us different as well, right? If we all thought the exact same way, the world would be a very bizarre place.
Very boring place too, might I add.
And I feel like what is a good thing is being able to have conversations, talk about that stuff, acknowledge what's going on in the world. I think especially on YouTube, one of the things that I see is people absolutely 100% shy away from politics and the state of the world on their channels. And I get it. But at some point, that is
Enough
it's
is enough.
the sand, right? For me, I feel it's much more important to acknowledge where we are and say that, hey, I want it to be better, but I'm not going to pretend that it's not what it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that happens a lot, that it's like, well, we just won't talk about it. We'll just not let's not think about it. We'll do the whole Scarlett O'Hara thing. I'll think about that another day or tomorrow or whatever that stupid line is.
Pulling the ostrich move.
But it does not help anybody.
It doesn't, because you have to be able to acknowledge what's going on in the world and not be willing to say, hey, social media or this or that means more to me than being a good human being. I think it's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we've run into a few of those, have we not?
And it surprises me every time it happens, when it's either happened to me or situations I hear about or anything like that, where this world of YouTube and social media and all of that becomes so important to people that they will prostitute themselves, basically. And
I like that. Yes.
And you see it with big creators, even,
Oh yeah.
Like I've seen some big creators who are just where they were, and what I liked about them was how real they were and everything like that. And now they've gotten big, and you watch them and you're just like, ooh, okay.
What the hell happened to you?
Yeah. And the things that they're willing to say and do and excuse to pretend like everything's wonderful so that, oh, hey, I got one more view or I got one more like. And I get it. But in the long run, and I said this in a video that I did before, as far as I'm concerned, this is all stuff that's supposed to make us happy and have fun, right? It's not that serious.
Exactly. It's not worth selling your soul for. That's for damn sure.
It's not. Now, have I met some incredible people through social media? 100%. Stacy is somebody that means so much to me. She knows that. We talk on the regular every day.
We do indeed.
And if I didn't talk to her or she didn't talk to me, one of us would be worried about the other.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's the norm.
It really isn't.
I feel like that's the exception to the rule when you meet really good people where you go, you know what, you're a kindred spirit. And I feel like I've met some people that I just, like Sarah knows I love Sarah. There's something about I just love my Sarah, and I will meet Sarah one day. I will meet Stacy one day. I will absolutely get my ass over to the UK because no offense, United States, none of y'all want to come visit us here. Trust me. The only thing we have is
I'd end up behind bars. I'm not going to lie.
But hey, we have air conditioning here, though.
This is true.
And
you also have Peeps. I love Peeps.
Peeps and air conditioning might be the only thing that
yeah. Oh no. And let's be real, could be the gummies too.
Well, and you know what? The everything seasoning, everything bagel seasoning.
Yes. Even JoJo's obsessed with that.
So those are a few good things, but I appreciate y'all hanging out with us and listening to me gab. And I'm first of all so happy that I finally got Jonestown done because I've been trying to do this for ages. I mean, absolute ages. So I'm so happy.
She really has.
To go through it and talk about it and just talk about cults in general. So thank you for hanging out and listening to me gab and watch Stacy making those incredible purple nails.
That's my Kool-Aid nail, right?
I love it. Oh, that's so dope. Those are really pretty. That's a gorgeous purple cat eye you use.
This is the what I colored the oil with.
Okay. What's that dark purple cat eye you used?
Oh, that's Prey. And I put these in the oil, the rainbow aurora thingies.
Cool. I like those.
So these are both purples. So a galaxy, space kitty, and then a Prey.
Yay. Wonder if that space kitty came from me.
No, this one came from my color scoop.
Oh, there you go. I love it. I sent Stacy all of my email control polishes because I wasn't using them. I felt bad. They were literally sitting on a shelf that was never used. And they got so overlooked. So I was like, and I knew she would love them. So I sent them to her.
Oh, yes. I can move this now.
Thank you for hanging out with us and spending some time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Miss Lisa. I'll be meeting you next year as well. Stacy will be cooking for us and making us all fat. It's going to be amazing. And I'll get to meet Paul next year. I'm excited about it.
And JoJo. JoJo is very excited.
Oh, yes. So I'm very, very excited. But with that, I want to tell everyone what I tell you every time it's time to leave. I want to wish you all peace, love, and joy. Bye.
Bye.